Good afternoon, everyone, or morning, afternoon, evening, depending on who we're talking to and what time zone everyone's in. We'll give it a few more minutes to let everybody kind of get around the table and before we get started. So it's good to see a lot of familiar faces and names on here. So we'll give it another minute. Christine, good to see you. Both of them. I got Christine and Christina, right? So that's awesome. We've got some all right, we'll just give it another minute or two and see if we've got anybody else waiting in the room. Hey, Autumn, good to see you. Okay. All right, we are 1 minute after, so why don't we go ahead and get started? And then I'm sure, Kelly, you're gonna be the, well, I'd like to say the adult in the room, making sure that everything is running properly. So feel free to fire up the chat window if you've got questions. Kelly's gonna keep an eye on that for us. And I am so excited to bring and welcome Justin Clapp to our roundtable today. He is coming from us, or to us from Dubai. So he wins the furthest to commute on Zoom award. So Justin, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, awesome. So I want to give you a little bit of background on Justin. We got introduced through a mutual connection on LinkedIn. So for those of you who hear me prattle on always about networking, I do practice what I preach, right? So Justin and I met a couple months ago and immediately mind melded on some really cool things. And where Justin's sweet spot is really helping his clients, connect who you are and what your purpose is with your livelihood. And, for those of us who are entrepreneurs, for those of us who are in corporate careers, I think there's a lot we can learn from Justin in terms of taking that purposeful direction and really using it to solve a problem that so many of us have. And the problem is outwardly, we all look like we have our act together, right? We're good, we're successful, by traditional means, everything is good, yet something isn't right. And something is still a little bit off. And then we go through this mind, I'm not going to use the word I want to use, but anyway, you guys know so we go through this situation where, I should be happier, but I'm not happy, and why aren't I happy, and all these things. And so Justin's sweet spot is really helping people zone in on that and solve the problem. And so I'm really excited to have some time with you today. And thanks for coming to the CWC community to share some of your ideas and some of the things that I've worked for your clients in the past. I'm happy to have you here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. My pleasure.
Great. So when we talk about people who there's just something else missing, as you're working through them, what does it look like for them? Like when they're coming in, what kind of problems does it look like they're having? And when you peel back those layers within the onion, what do you really see?
Yeah. So, it's a very common thing, there's so many people, like you said, they're the picture of success on the outside. They have a great business, they have a great career, and, people see them and they're like, wow, like they've really got it going on. Like, how could you possibly not be happy? But deep within, they're not, there's something missing. And ultimately, what it always comes down to is there's something not aligned. And what's not aligned is our doing is not aligned with our being, with who we are, inside. And that's really the root of it. And, manifestations of it show up in a lot of different ways. Burnout is one. When you're not passionate on what you do, it drains your energy. And ultimately we operate from either a, energy rich place or a, energy poor place. Mm-hmm. And if our doing is not aligned with our being, we're not in a place where we can actively create. So we're operating from a place of fear, of scarcity, of lack. When we want to be operating from a place of rich energy, abundance, love, creation, and that was kind of my journey, and why I do the work I do, and I really believe that all of us, are always best positioned to help who we once were, and my journey was, I've always been self-employed. And my first business I started after grad school. And that was kind of like a branding agency for, higher education and colleges and schools. The business did really well. like really well. I mean, I was like living well. I lived at the Ritz-Carlton in Boston, driving new cars, buying original art,
You
you
were
know.
fancy.
Yeah. And people were like, wow, but I was so unhappy. I was so miserable, and so exhausted all the time. And, people were like, well, how could you possibly not be happy? You have a great business. You should be so grateful for this.
Hmm.
And I was grateful for it, but there was something missing for me, and in my case, what it was creative self-expression. I wasn't able to create and work with people on a really deep level. So, as they say, when the student is ready, the teacher appears, and that's when my coach showed up. It was 2017. And I remember it very vividly. I was up at like 3 a.m. working. I was always working. And I had a deadline the next day at like 9. And I was like, God, is this all there is? Is this all there is? And I was so stuck on this treadmill that I could not see a way off. Like I had people working for me I had to pay. I had client demands. I had, all this stuff going on. And I just didn't see how I could possibly get out of that. And that's a common thing too, is when we have these blinders on and we just feel like we're trapped, we're tethered, tethered down.
Yeah.
So working with my coach, it was really the beginning of me discovering, or I should say rediscovering who I am. It was the beginning of my spiritual awakening. I learned who I am at my essence. I learned my why, my purpose, my core values, my state of flow as an entrepreneur. And ultimately, I really found the calling to this work. I found this is why I'm here. Again, being best positioned to help who we once were. That's who I help now. I help people who are the picture of success, but they're lacking something within.
Sure, absolutely. And I love how you talked about getting back to who we once were, right? So, if you look back, we grow and we mature and life happens. And, when you get back to that essence of, before the expectations set in and before responsibilities kicked in and all the tools, all the toys, all the obligations we have, like I like to say, adulting is hard, right? And you try and get back to who that person is, that's a journey worth taking. And, I share the same journey in terms of, had all the things, right? The executive job, the fancy apartment, all the big things, playing on Wall Street, having a good time. But it turned into a soul crushing grind, right? And I loved it until I didn't. And then much like you, decided to make a very radical change in terms of cashing out, moving to a tropical island and seeing if I had what it took to start a business. But in doing that, it was hard to get back to who I was, because I had really figuring out, like, I lost her. Because, I was too busy on the, what pair of Louboutins do I need to make sure I wear to this next meeting? So everybody knew that I was the one that sat at the head of the table kind of crap. And so I know for me, I had to do something dramatic. I jokingly say I went from Soho to boho, right? In terms of that island life. And I sold all my fancy things and just lived in flip-flops, not even Gucci flip-flops, like regular ones. And that was a massive change for me. And moving into this other environment where it was shocking that no one asked me what I did for a living. I'm like, but don't you want to know?
Yeah.
Right. And so getting out of that materialistic piece and getting out of that culture of what you do is the intrinsic value of who you are as a human, and on the island, you're either nice or you're a jerk and people respond accordingly. Right. And so, but not everybody has the luxury of selling everything and moving to a tropical island or starting their own thing and, living in Dubai, right? In terms of really taking that massive change to disrupt your environment. So for people who still have to adult and still have those obligations, what are some of the tools that you have found effective for helping people get back to who they once were?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it really begins with, going back to who you are, and one of the most powerful things that you can do is to find your why. So each of us has a why, a how, and a what. And, many of you have probably seen the famous TED Talk by Simon Sinek.
Love Simon. Yep, absolutely.
Really amazing. But it's really profound. And what's cool about the why, how, what, if we take it one level deeper, it actually corresponds to that continuum of being and doing. Okay? Because our why points to our purpose. It's our, innermost driver. It's the thing that makes us do what we do. It's the thing that brings us fulfillment. If we're not leveraging and activating our why, we're never going to be fulfilled. Our how is our process. It's our way of moving through the world. It's the way we work. It's our state of flow. Okay. And our what is our promise. It's what we do. It's what people can count on from us. So, it's that continuum of being and doing. Now, again, most people, like you said, their identity is so wrapped up in their doing. They're so focused on the what they're doing, and it's the first question we get asked anytime that we go to like a network. What do you do? It's like, well, how about who are you?
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
Exactly. It's like, are you a jerk?
yeah. So when we go back to our why, when we go back to our purpose, that innermost driver, that's how we can begin to see what brings us fulfillment. So discovering your why is one of the most powerful things that you can do. And, to your point about, sure, not everybody can make a radical shift in life, but when you can connect with your why, you connect to something greater than you. When you know your why, then you can connect it to wherever you work. What's the purpose of that organization? What's the why of that organization? How does your why contribute to that? So, there's always ways to get yourself more in alignment, even without, uprooting everything.
Yeah, like a dramatic shift, right?
Right. Yeah.
I have a tendency for drama, so that works for me. And I think
Me too. So
right, instead of the big things. And in the chat, I saw Christine ask a question in terms of shedding some of the material things. Did it help align with my core values? And Christine, it really did. And I didn't expect it. So a little known secret, in terms of the things that I didn't expect is the first year that I decided to do something radically different, to reset really all the things that I need to recalibrate in my life. I've never made so little money and lived so richly. And I'm not kidding you. My first year in business, I made a whopping $30,000. That was it. And yet, I was able to live well. Thankfully there's not good wine in Belize, so I didn't have that temptation, right? In terms of having to spend all my money on good wine. But that was a massive, like, I had chased money my entire life. And Justin, you talk about your big why, in terms of finding that. And I have our clients do that as well. And I did it for myself and really tried to figure out, where did this like hyper assertive focus on success come from? And long story short, when I was a teenager, my parents broke up. We didn't have a lot of money to begin with, but when my dad decided to check out, we were homeless for like months, couch surfing with my mom and my sister on, neighbors, friends, that kind of thing. So my why came from, I never wanted to end up like my mom, right? I'm like, I saw how much she struggled and how much she really, how hard it was for her. She got pregnant with me in high school. She didn't have a high school diploma. So she was a waitress trying to make ends meet for 2 kids, right? And so I saw that, and that's where my why came from. But as I realized that money is not actually what my why was, and started to recenter really what it was, not the superficial why, that's when everything started to change for me. And really making, not even knowing, it's not like I said, oh, I'm going to get rid of all my shiny things and be happier. I was like, this is a new adventure. Let's give it a try. If it sucks, we can always come back. And that was the unintended benefit that we found from making that massive disruption. But so Justin, how did you find your big why?
yeah, I mean, ultimately it was really through my journey, and really like, kind of hitting that wall,
Yeah.
and realizing that I was on the wrong path, and really for me, it was about, kind of returning to who I am, and finding that I'm here to help other people. And that's ultimately my why. is to contribute and help people. And because that's what's fascinating with this framework is there's actually 9 whys. So, our why can be anything. Like there's a big why, but there's a why that drives that. And, there's 9 core motivations that we all have as human beings. Some of them are like, to contribute, challenge the status quo, find a better way, make sense of the complex, master things, and one of those is our why. One of the remaining 8 is our how, and one of the remaining 7 is our what. So for me, when I discovered this, like everything made sense because my why is to contribute. My how is to make sense of the complex, and my what is to bring clarity. And when I discovered this, everything made sense because I saw how it manifested in my previous business also, because I helped, organizations make sense of the marketplace and I brought them clarity through their brand. And now I help, people who are, highly successful, like professionals and, business owners make sense of their journey and bring them clarity on the path forward. So when you find your 3 coordinates, everything makes sense. But the power in this is it gives you clarity on what you can create. And it gives you clarity on what won't bring you fulfillment. So my least ranked one is actually right way, because that's people like really hardcore follow the rules, like that's kind of like, law enforcement types,
Yeah.
So, because I like to break out of
right? They apply to everyone else. Yeah.
Yeah. So, knowing that, knowing what resonates with you and knowing what doesn't resonate with you, brings you so much clarity on where you should go and where you probably don't want to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Where do people most get stuck in this journey?
In terms of the journey of self-discovery, or
Yeah. We all have
yeah,
blocks, right? So what kind of
yeah,
things do people typically get stuck on?
yeah. Well, one of the biggest things is having a difficulty to break away from that from like kind of being tethered to their doing. Breaking free from that identity of the what.
Yeah.
So many people have a hard time to untether themselves from that. And they're scared to really look within, and one of the things they're afraid of is that, everything could change. Your whole life could change. Your career could change, your lifestyle, like everything, and that's one of the biggest things is just having the courage to, go on the journey,
Yeah, absolutely. And it is interesting, right? Because I find that most people don't fear change, they fear loss.
Yeah.
Right. If
Right.
I was to say you're going to win the lottery tomorrow and have $17 million in your bank account, that's probably not so scary.
Yeah.
Your life will
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
and it's that scarcity mindset again that you were talking about in terms of if I do something different, the immediate place we all go, and I'm no different, is okay, it's going to suck. And is that going to be okay? Versus seeing the upside or seeing the potential for more things to go right than wrong, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's exactly what it is. It's that scarcity because, so afraid of losing what we have.
Yeah.
But what about what we can gain?
Mhm.
Because what the universe has in store for us, if we allow it to manifest, is so much more than we could ever dream. So much more.
And it sounds very like a coined phrase when you say it, but when you live it, it's very different. Like in my mind, getting over the fear of not having a paycheck, which I'd had for over 30 years, and those big bonuses that come in February, which I'd grown accustomed to really liking. It's like, that's gone. And, my partner, Steve, and I, like, we didn't even live together until we moved to Belize. So I was like, okay, there's all kinds of things that could go totally sideways here. And if everything were to go terribly wrong, worst case scenario, I end up back in Raleigh, North Carolina, sleeping on my mom's couch until I figure it out. Right. And so as I played through those worst case scenarios, I'm like, okay, let's do it. But, people get stuck on that and a lot, in terms of that fear of the monsters under the bed. And then they're dust bunnies, right? And they're like, oh, okay, I can do this.
Yeah. And it's a powerful point. And, it really ultimately comes down to mindset. It
Yep.
ultimately comes down to mindset in the energy from which we operate. And that's a powerful thing to remember. The energy from which we operate is the energy from which we create. So if all we're thinking about is lack, and fear of losing something, that's what we're going to get. That's what we're going to get. But
Yeah.
if we think about what we're going to gain and what we can create, that's what we're going to get. What we focus on is what we bring into our lives.
100%. Yeah. I was doing during COVID, I was stuck in the UK and couldn't get back to Belize because I shut the country down. Our place in Connecticut was rented. We had no place to live. So we were stuck in the UK for 4 months. And I was in a weird headspace. My business was starting to change, as you might imagine. And so I did this like online challenge, which I don't normally do. And it was like Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi and, Brendan Bouchard, all of them, right? All the happy, touchy-feely guys, right? So I'm like, all right, I need some of this in my life for a minute. But Dean said something that stuck with me forever. And he said, your focus is your expanse. So if you are focused on abundance, if you're focused on family, then that is what's going to show up for you. If you're focused on work and scarcity, then that's what's going to show up for you. And once I really took a little bit to digest that, and you just see that happen, and people are like, oh, when I say something, it's weird how it happens. It's like, it's not weird. It's not some cosmic universe taking care of you. That's your focus. And when you focus on these things, then that's what you're going to bring into your world. And it's incredibly powerful, right? So that helped me get me out of my COVID funk, right? Like, it's like, all right, now.
Yeah. And, it's important to be self-aware of this and, constantly monitor our mindset and where our thoughts are coming from,
Yeah, absolutely. Now you talk about, and we've got some entrepreneurs here, we've got some corporate people here, so we've got a good mix here, but you talk about the power of creating a business from the inside out. And I think that's transferable into a career, because you should be treating your career as a business, or if you actually are starting a company. So what does that mean? And how do you start to think about that?
Yeah. So it's a very powerful shift in how you think about starting a business. So how most people start a business, and how I started my first business was this way too. We, start on the what. We're focused on the doing. We have an idea. We might see something in the marketplace that's a good opportunity. Or we might start a business based on what we've always done. Like in my case, it was a branding agency.
Mm-hmm.
But that's starting from the what, not starting from the why. So you're kind of creating a business from the outside in. When you create a business from the inside out, you're designing everything from the bottom up. So what you're doing is you're going back to your why. What's your purpose? What's your true calling? What's your journey in life? What challenges have you overcome? What obstacles have you overcome? Those give us a clue to what we're meant to teach. What are your core values? What's your state of flow, as a business owner or leader? And what type of lifestyle do you want to live? Do you want to live remote? Do you want to travel the world? Do you want to work 3 days a week? Having clarity on all of these things inform the business we create. So when we create a business from who we are in here, based on our purpose, our passion, our truth, knowing the lifestyle that we want to support, it's going to look very differently than if we just have an idea and start to create a business. Because when we do it from the outside in, what happens is the business dictates our lifestyle. It overtakes everything. It tethers us down. But when we, create the business from the inside out, we become untethered, because that business is, empowering and supporting our purpose, our passion, and the lifestyle that we want to live. So it's a very different energy that you're creating a business from that place.
And so how can you translate that into a more corporate type career?
Yeah. So again, it, goes back to connecting with your why,
Mm-hmm.
So what's your purpose? What are you passionate about? What makes you, what's fun for you? Work should be fun, knowing all of that, and also knowing the lifestyle that you want to live. Again, what if you want to travel the world? Well, that'll inform where you look, what types of, organizations or nonprofits you could join. What if you want to live in a certain country? So knowing all of these things up front will inform where you look in what you create. But with job searching, people kind of do it the other way too. They look first about, job title, income, all these things first. So it's the outside in versus inside out.
Yeah, absolutely. And
The same thing, if it's a career or it's a business, it's the same exact thing.
yeah. And I think really being able to connect that sense of purpose. And, we deal with a lot of clients who have the golden handcuffs, right? So they're mostly in financial services, they're making really good money. And of course, they've got the tools, the toys, couple ex-spouses they're paying for, they can't sell everything and live in a yurt, right? So, but there's this mindset that I have to trade or give up all the things that I've worked for, meaning compensation, impact, credibility, those types of things, if I want to make a change and be happy. And again, it's that scarcity mindset that we're talking about. And when our clients start to really peel back and say, hang on a second, I kind of do something that is in tighter alignment with what lights me up, with what energizes me, and I don't have to give up anything, right? In terms of lifestyle. And so it's that that trade-off of I can't change and I can't be abundant, have abundance at the same time. When I'm a big fan of, you can absolutely have your cake and eat it too as you go along.
Totally. Yeah. And one thing that I love to say is it's about, waking up to your purpose and monetizing your passion. Because there's always a way to monetize what you're passionate about. Because when you're clear on your what, how, and why, it opens up everything. When your why is strong enough, there's a million ways to create the how and what. Always. So
I love that triangulation, right? Of the what, how, and why. I got to say, this is this is new for me, right? In terms of how to think about things, so that it just completely resonates.
Yeah, it's very powerful. It's a simple concept, but it's about going back to your truth.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you wish you knew earlier in your career?
Oof, that's a tough question. I'd say I honestly wouldn't change anything. Okay. I'll preface it by that because everything I went through led me to where I am.
Yeah.
So I would never change that. But what I wish I knew is that it's okay to follow your true calling. It's okay to listen to that voice within that's whispering to you at night, saying, this is what you're really meant to do. It's okay to listen to that. And it's okay to trust that everything will work out and that you can do well and make really good money doing what you're passionate about, rather than, following the path that everybody else did, But again, I wouldn't change it, because going through that really taught me so much.
Well, yeah. And I think all of that, right? Our wins, our losses, they're our journey, and they inform who we are today. So warts and all, right? It makes the whole package. So when we talk about, peeling back the layers of fear, right? In terms of, what other things do you find that your clients are most fearful of in terms of, got that scarcity mindset? What else is showing up for them?
Yeah. So, scarcity mindset's a big thing, fear of loss, lack of self-belief, imposter syndrome is a big one, especially if someone's completely changing what they're doing, victim mindset, that's a big one too. Lots of people think everything's happening to them, whatever that could be, and one powerful question that I always say that you can ask when someone's trapped in this, victim mindset and they keep complaining, just ask them, say, well, given that's the reality, what do you want to create? Because when you let go of that and recognize that nothing's happening to you, you have the power to step into the seat of the creator and create a new reality. So it's really, the common denominator here, going back to we're either in contraction or, expansion, either like an energy rich state or energy poor state, The energy poor state is like the realm of ego, where, we're so concerned about what everybody's thinking about us, our image, oh, what would people think if I changed careers? Oh my God.
That shows up a lot, right? It's like, what will people think? I'm like,
yeah,
doesn't matter. But yes, it's a big thing for people for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Scarcity mindset, fear, victim mindset, all these things. But like, victim mindset transcends to creation, where you're thinking creatively, about solutions versus the problem.
Mhm.
Scarcity mindset transcends to, abundance. Fear transcends to self-love. And ego transcends to higher self. That's our connection to source. That's when we get these ideas out of the blue. When we write things and it's like, wow, where did that come from? That's the higher self. That's the voice within our gut telling us things.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we've conditioned ourselves not to listen to our instincts as much.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think it's really important to pay attention to that. And that aha moment, I think, when, I want to kind of zone in on the, that victim mindset and how to get out of that. Because the other side of that is, okay, so if it's not someone else's fault, then it's mine, right? And it's like that level of accountability that, oh, hang on a second, like I can control this. This is in my control, and I've been giving up that control for too long. Whether it's a jerky boss or whether it's an organization that doesn't align with your values or whatever, it's easier to blame them, right? They are doing this is happening, that kind of stuff, which is pretty common in corporate for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's about taking, responsibility for the situation and, really stepping into your power,
Yeah. And when, you finally have a say, it's like, oh, I get to change this. I don't have to do this, right? There are options. I can make a better outcome for myself and for the ones that I love, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Great. Awesome. So once people have that clarity and they're starting to, see that, they're connecting, that beautiful trilogy, what's your advice about creating that ultimate vision, and really kind of setting your goals and being able to reach them?
Yeah. So, that's the first step, is clarity, on your why, your how, and your what. And, creating a vision, so there's 3 spheres in life. I always like to think of 3 areas of life. There's personal, professional, and spiritual. And all 3 have to be, working together. And, all 3 have to be balanced. If one is neglected, we're not going to feel right, we'll not feel like, fulfilled. So I always like to tell people, when you're creating your vision, think about all 3 areas of your life. And, there's some powerful tools, they're simple, but very powerful, that I like to, share with clients. One of my favorite, that I love to do myself even, is my ideal day. It's an awesome thing to do. So I always tell people, take some time when you can be alone, private, very quiet, comfortable, relaxed space. And, write your ideal day. Go like, 2 years into the future, where everything is exactly as you want it to be. Your work, where you're living, how you're living, who you're living with, what you're doing. And write that day from the moment that you wake up until the moment you go to bed. And do it where it's not like, oh, I'm going on a yacht and all this, do like a normal day, but dream big, like where you would love to live, clients you'd love to be working with, how you're working with them, what you're doing that evening. Are you going on a walk, and then read that time to time, like, read it once a week. And, even kind of combine it with music too. So like, if there's a certain piece of music that resonates with that ideal day, play that. And when you're in your car driving to work or whatever, play the song, and it brings the energy back, So when you have your vision, and that's really your vision, your ideal day is your vision, because this always comes down to life, how you want to live. That's the most important thing. So when you have that, then, from the vision can come your goals, and one powerful thing to remember about goals is, when we create goals, you want to state them from the present tense. It's a very powerful thing to do, as if it's already here, And when you state the goal from the present tense, it shifts the energy. Because
Hmm.
with goals are not a place to get to. That's what most people think, like, oh, I got to get to this
Yeah.
goal.
Yeah.
What if we shift it? What if we view goals as a place to come from, not a place to get to? So what this means, how this looks is like, okay, so say if you're, like an attorney, all right, and you have a goal of, billing $10 million a year, right? Just a random example. How would it be if you were to show up today? So how would that $10 million a year attorney show up today? Differently. How would you communicate? How would you dress? How would you walk in a room? How would you show up in meetings? Like, how would you structure your time? So if you act as if you're that now, you're going to get there so much quicker because you're paving the way. You're changing your habits. You're changing your way of being in the present moment to get to that goal much quicker. And then action steps are the stepping stones that we take to get there.
Yeah, I mean, and I love the concept of having your goals in the present. I also think one of the things as you're drawing those perfect days, which I'm a big fan of that process, is also to tell people. Because the more you talk about it, the more you put it out there, the more you share with those that you love, and anybody else who will listen, right? Then the more real it becomes. And I also have found that I am, much faster at achieving these big, scary things I like to do for myself or to myself, when I tell other people about it. Right. So yeah, I think that's fantastic. I absolutely love that. There's a few questions that came through the chat. So I want to go back and let's tie up some of those. So from Leora, it says, so how does one resolve each of these negative mindsets? Despite the clarity, right? Changing one's mindset. So the imposter syndrome, the victim, scarcity. So how do you start to get out of that spin cycle, I like to call it, of those negative mindsets?
Yeah. Well, I mean, so what's interesting about these, they're all connected.
Yeah.
So scarcity mindset's very much connected to victim mindset. They all feed off of each other. So, one of the things to do is to really, look at what is the thing that's kind of, causing the most, pain, so to speak. Is it more like the fear? Is it the scarcity? And, I mean, it's a journey, this is not going to change overnight, so the first step is being aware of it. That's a very powerful step, because so many people, I mean, I know so many people growing up that were so trapped in scarcity mindset and they didn't even know it. I mean, at all, I mean, it was just who they were, so self-awareness is the first step. That's the very first step. So when you're aware that you are having these thoughts, then, you have a choice. When a thought enters your mind, a thought of scarcity, how can you shift that around? How can you reframe that thought, to a thought of, abundance?
Yeah.
But basically, the biggest advice I have is to slow down. Slow down. Slowing down solves so many problems. If we can just slow down and step into the present moment and witness the thoughts versus being so entrenched in the thoughts, that gives us an opportunity to observe the thought and decide what to do with it.
Yeah.
And the more we do this, the easier it gets,
Yeah, I have something that I call the fearsome four. And I think we treat all these negative ideas and the things that go in our head the same. I don't think they are. Right. So in terms of fear and the fearsome four that I call it, you've got second guessing, you've got imposter syndrome, you've got your inner critic, and you have those low self-confidence moments. And we jumble them all into like just the spin cycle, I like to call it. But when you really start to think about what am I experiencing this moment? And it's like, okay, my inner critic is on fire, right? It's telling me that, I'm a total fraud. You shouldn't be doing this. You don't belong here. For those of you who don't know, I'm in the process of actually writing a book. So I'm in this right now, heavy, right? In terms of that inner critic of what are you doing? And so the advice I have for people who are really going through that inner critic piece is to actually write down everything you're telling yourself. like word for word, and do that for a couple days. Because when you write this stuff down and then combine it, because you'll find that there's a loop, right? There's a lot of consistency and patterns to what you're saying to yourself, then actually stand in front of a mirror and read it out loud. And when you do that, you are going to realize that there are some things that are more of an emotional, like, it's just junk from the past or whatever. And so you can accept that for what it is, but not give it the truth and the power that it's taking. And for other areas that you actually do have a skill gap in, right? In terms of, I'm just not naturally good at this. Well, then you have the option of, okay, how do you either get good at it or find somebody else who can for you? And so I like to try and take much more tactical approaches, to things like that, right? If you're second guessing yourself all the time, woulda, coulda, shoulda, Monday morning quarterback, all of the things, good. Then write those observations down, because there are learnings in there. Just don't let it slow you down, right? And so you can use that to continue to move forward. And I think, for those that have that scarcity mindset, the thing that I'd love to change the dialogue on is, instead of saying, I can't, change the conversation to, how can I? Because it's always possible. It may take a little bit of time, but it's always possible. So instead of saying, I can't, it's not there, like, all right, it's not, but how can it be? Right. And what would need to happen to do that? And that's, to your point, that's when you get back into that creation mode, right?
Yeah.
And you get back into being able to create that future for yourself that you want.
Yeah.
So hopefully some good tips from Justin and myself to help get those demons under control, right? Those fearsome fours. The other thing Christine had asked is, how are we defining contribute? So when we talked about contributing before, how are we defining that?
Yeah, so contribute as a why, as kind of that driver is a drive to contribute to something greater than us, to help people, to help a cause, to be part of something bigger than ourselves, to like help people. I mean, that's really kind of the thing that drives it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm going to give you some parting words before we open it up for Q&A, and then I'm going to have a question for our audience as well. So.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's great to be here and everything, and I'd say one of the things to close is, to just remember who you are, and remember the power that you have within you. And each of us has the power to create the reality that we want, and it really begins with deciding that, and, having the courage to do that, and, just taking the first step, on that journey. Because, each of us is a creator within us, we have limitless potential, to manifest the life that we want, and it really begins by going back to who you are within, what's really calling you, what's your purpose, why are you here? Because each of us has a very, very unique gift, a very special reason why we're here. And if we don't bring that to the whole world suffers from that, and it's really our duty to really bring our true calling to life, so it's not just for you, it's for everybody,
Way to lay on that extra guilt trip, right? So yeah, you're not just doing it for you, you're doing it for all the other people too. It's a good motivator sometimes, for sure. Yeah. All right. So for everybody that's here, I've seen those of you on camera taking great notes, but what I'm really curious to see, and if you can light up the chat window, what was your biggest aha moment from our conversation today? So I'd be curious to see what really resonated. And then also we're going to open it up for Q&A. So feel free to come off the mute. Let's have a roundtable conversation. But yeah, I'm really curious to see in the chat window what some of the bigger aha moments were, because I had quite a few. So yeah, I'm with you too, Christina, right? The how, what, why. Yep. And while you guys are typing, Lior, I see your question in terms of reading the negativity out loud, affirming it. It actually doesn't. What it does is it allows you to hear out loud what you're saying, and 9 times out of 10, it's so far from true that when those words are spoken and you're looking at yourself, you're like, I don't really actually believe that. And so, but when it's in your head, it's just kind of tucked into a nice, safe place where it can continue, to grow and do you more harm than good. So a goal is a place to come from. Love that. Slow down. Great. Awesome. All right. Very good. Well, this was a great conversation. Yeah, I know we do. So I just, so Christina, go ahead. Kick us off.
Okay. Well, Justin, thanks so much. I really appreciated hearing you talk. I was interested early in the conversation. You talked about how in your journey, when you were ready, the teacher appeared. So my questions are, do you think you would have gotten there on your own without this teacher / coach? What was the benefit of having a coach?
Yeah, great question. So, yeah, I think I would have gotten there eventually, but probably a lot slower. And I would have made a lot of mistakes, So for me, one of the most powerful things about having a coach, my coach that I've worked with for years, he's a coach, he's a mentor, he's a teacher, he's a guide, he's all of this. And I mean, he really, acted as a mirror almost, that could, reflect back so much of what I wasn't seeing. I mean, there's so many blind spots that I saw that I couldn't see, and it just really woke me up to who I am, so that's one of the most powerful things about having a coach is, there's somebody who really doesn't know us, but can point out so many things that we're missing. It's also somebody that can challenge us, that can, hold us accountable. I mean, there's so much value in it. Like I can't imagine not having a coach, and many of my clients are coaches and, and the same with them. And then who they teach, I mean, it's this thing, because it's a long chain, some of us are further along on the journey than others, and then who we help, I mean, it's all connected,
Great. Yes, I'm a big believer in coaching myself, right? I always have one. Well, I didn't for the first 6 months when I started this business and made all kinds of expensive mistakes. So then I got and I got it together. I'm like, oh, hang on a second. I actually need some serious backup here. Anybody else have any questions? Go ahead, Christine.
So my question has to do, so I'm starting a new business, as Tammy knows, related to climate change, because that's my why. Really want to impact the world in a positive way, make sure that my kids and my grandkids have a world to live in. My issue is my partner, who has the golden handcuffs. And Tammy and I have talked about this, but it's been a struggle because we are fine financially. I've owned several businesses before and sold them. He is literally like the negative force that's not allowing me to be maybe that's a victim mindset. How do I create an environment to make sure that he feels comfortable with me going out and starting another business? He knows I've been successful in it before. He knows that I can get project work if I need to. I'm very self-reliant. The slowdown part really resonated with me because right now I'm in that process of understanding what the pivots are, what I need to do with my business plan. But my partner, honestly, it's creating some tension. So any suggestions for someone has a partner that's in a scarcity mindset about helping them kind of lift them out of that a little bit?
Okay. Now, is this your business partner or
Husband?
Oh, okay, life partner. Yeah. That's a whole other topic because so many times when we grow, sometimes those that are surrounding us, our family or loved ones, aren't growing at the same pace. So it's very difficult. I mean, not being privy to the dynamics of your partnership, but I would just say to really communicate with them heartfelt, and tell them how you really feel, because what's lacking for you here?
He's always been at the same job. He works insane hours. I honestly think his life is out of balance. And I think that he thinks he's doing things the right way. Mm-hmm. And therefore I should be in a corporate job. And
Mhm.
I just don't agree. I love being my own boss. I'm good at it. I don't know.
Yeah. And Christina, something you might want to also do too, not to interrupt Justin, but is to really start to unpack the fear, right? Because there's always the scarcity mindset and the what if, right? So if we're like, okay, let's talk about this, right? So, okay, so we're afraid we're not going to have the house. We're afraid we're not going to have enough money in retirement. We're afraid, and then just one at a time, start to figure out, okay, these are legit fears. No question, market could take a tumble. Everything could go to shit. You never know. And so really treat it like almost a business conversation from a risk mitigation perspective. It's like, because your husband will understand these things, right? In terms of in business world. So let's do, a risk plan. How are we going to detect it? How are we going to prevent it? And then what are we going to do when the monster comes out of the bed? Because I think it's this uncertainty, right? And saying, okay, yes, I will give you the benefit of the doubt that yes, absolutely everything could go wrong at one time. Agreed. Okay, now what are we gonna do about it? Right, that was kind of like my moment when I'm like, okay, if worst case scenario, I had to sleep on mom's couch for a couple months till I figured it out. Like, obviously your husband would never go for that, but my mom's couch isn't that comfortable, but you get the point. So maybe, getting into more of the tactical, what could really go wrong? What are you really concerned about? Perhaps it's the fact that the relationship will get a different balance and doesn't have anything to do with money. Right? It's like, you're going to be too busy. You're going to fall in love with that instead of me. I don't know, making shit up at this point. But you get it may not be the things that you can count. And so, so those are some of the things, because I know I get very excited about this business that I'm growing and all the things that I'm doing. And my partner, Steve, has a much better perspective, and like his boundaries are, he does very successful, but he loves his private time and the fun time. But I will get the tap on the shoulder. It's like, giddy up, cowgirl, you're done, right? Because it's my time too, it's fair. But we always, we know that, about each other, and he knows he's got to, pull the cord once in a while and get me out. So I think talking about it in more practical terms, and then saying, how do we prevent it? How do we detect it? What do we do if it happens? That might help a little bit.
Cool.
Go ahead, Justin. What else were you gonna say?
Yeah, no, I mean, because yeah, it sounds like this fear. So yeah, it's true, because if you can just have, kind of like a conversation where, all of the cards are on the table, and look at, well, what's the worst case, and the odds of that happening are slim to none,
Cool.
Hopefully that helps a little bit. I'm sure things are firing up now. That's becoming more real, right? So yeah, for sure. Okay. Who else has questions? This is such a great conversation. Who else has questions?
I have a question.
Okay.
So what advice would you give someone? They've kind of found their clarity, but they need help creating that vision to reach their goals. So they kind of, are dialed in. Now they need to create the vision.
Yeah. So having clarity on, our why is one thing, but we also do need clarity on how we'll manifest that why and what we'll create from that work. So when we can tap into all three of those coordinates, like, our purpose, how we'll bring that to life and what we'll create, that brings a little bit more clarity to, what our true calling is, And, I just encourage people to really connect with, again, your passions in life, what really brings you fun, what type of lifestyle do you want to live, and just dream big, really dream big, because anything is possible that you want to create.
That's great.
And I also think when we're dreaming big, we also are afraid of failure. Right, because we're comfortable. We get comfortable in the discomfort, right? Whatever our current reality is. It's the devil versus the devil that you don't. And I think we tend to have such a polarized perspective of success and failure. And when you start to deconstruct that a little bit And you start to realize that you can't have success without failure. And that these are learning opportunities to keep what's working, get rid of what's not, and try something new in terms of really embracing that experimental mindset. Then all of a sudden we have not created an environment for ourselves where it's, winner take all. I don't know how many clients are like, this is what I want to do once I get that vision, Kelly. And it's like, damn the torpedoes for doing this. And then the first step back, they're like, well, never mind, this was a terrible idea, right? Versus saying, okay, this is new. I'm going to screw up more things than I'm going to get right. But the things I get right are going to be good. And then I'll keep making new mistakes, not the same ones I've made. So taking that experimental mindset as you're creating that vision and moving in, and just taking off the stress and the drama of, failure is the enemy. It's like failure is an accelerator. And I think having that mindset just helps people get unstuck or recover faster. That resilience is so important in anything that we do in life, because nothing ever goes the way you want it to. Some things are better, some things are not, but you got to be able to adjust. And that mindset, I think, is the first step to be able to, to being able to do that well.
Yeah.
Right. All right, Christina.
Justin, you talked about the importance of alignment with the doing. And it makes me wonder a bit about clients and working with clients. And is there some importance with identifying and selecting the right kinds of clients to work with too, that kind of also align with that,
Yes.
all that purpose? And then do you have any advice for when you have the opportunity to choose your clients as opposed to them being chosen for you, how we do that?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so clients, it's really like almost picking like a partner, like, it's somebody that you're, probably going to work with long term. So you really want to be working with someone that resonates with you, that you enjoy working with, that shares your belief, shares what you believe, shares what you're passionate about, and the thing is too, when you speak with a potential client, oftentimes we can tell right away, if it's somebody that we really kind of get along with or not. So my advice is always trust those first instincts when you talk with a client right away. And if it's somebody that resonates with you, but that's what's really powerful, about when we're clear, on our purpose, on our why. And when we're communicating that through our brand too, and all of the touch points we have, because that will attract people with the same belief, Yeah, so, having clarity on that and using it as a litmus test almost is very powerful. But, the thing is too, when you talk with a prospect and, if the energy just doesn't feel right, listen to that. That's an important thing to pay attention to, and honestly, like, with me, that's one of the things I do, right away, within like 2 minutes, I can tell if it's a right fit or not,
Yes, and I think we've all
just pay
made the
attention
mistake of going forward with one that you knew wasn't a good fit, right? It never ends well for anyone.
Yeah. Oh, I've done it. Believe me.
Oh yeah, same thing. It's like, I need the money, I gotta serve, and I'm like, oh, this is like, poke your eyes out, right? So, and yeah, nobody wins when we do that. So great question, Christina, especially as you're getting your practice up and running, right? So, balancing that, I want new customers and I want the right customers, and it's a balance worth finding for sure. This has been absolutely fantastic. So Justin, where can everyone find you?
Yes, so they can find me online at my website, which is justinclapp.com, and it's CLAPP, it's 2 P's, and LinkedIn as well. I'm on there, see Justin Clapp.
Or if you're in Dubai, just yell Justin, you can find you there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So yes, thanks Kelly for putting that in. And Christine, I know that you put out a shout out for LinkedIn, so feel free to connect with each other and continue the dialogue. This is all about networking and helping enrich everyone's journey as we go. So Justin, thank you so much for all your insights today. I really appreciate it. Thanks for everybody who hung in today. Great to see some familiar faces and some new ones as well. So thanks again, and we'll see you guys next time.